Hello, welcome. Thank you for joining us. I am Jessica, and that handsome man is Mr. John. And we are here with Medicare Mapped. And today we have an interesting question. Why you would not get Medicare Part B? Let's take it away, sir.
Good morning, Jess. Yeah, tough question we'll be addressing today. Today's rant is on acronyms.
Acronyms.
Yeah, I don't know about you, but there are more acronyms. I mean, I should have gone to school for at least a year just to learn acronyms.
Fact. In this business, fact.
My wife actually was talking about our last broadcast, and she said, you kept using the word ACA. And I thought, stupid acronyms. I have so many of them. I don't even know where to start. I have so many acronyms in my head,
True.
right?
It's
So
true.
we probably need to apologize to people on a regular basis if we're using acronyms, because they're just, it's part of what happens in this world. And now we have memes. My child doesn't even know, half the words that I use, because she's used to using little symbols or acronyms. Anyway, so rant, acronyms. ACA last week, the Affordable Care Act, just for those that may not understand what that is.
I do feel like there are so many acronyms in insurance, and it's almost its whole other language. And to your point, you definitely need extra time to learn what those acronyms are, or a tattoo that goes like this. I burned myself on my pot the other day with all of the acronyms on your arm so that you can refer back, because it does take a long time to get those figured out. For sure.
And there's enough of me that maybe you could fit the majority of the acronyms all over this, but
No, I think there are so many acronyms, we probably don't even know them all.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter that it's been 2 decades.
Anyway, rant acronyms. Sorry for those last week didn't know. The ACA stands for Affordable Care Act. Some people called it the Obamacare. We'll talk about those things from time to time as well. Unfortunately, I'm going to have to try to be better about not just simply using acronyms to describe our subjects for the day.
Feel you deep,
So,
my friend.
anyway, we're discussing today Part B of Medicare. And it's interesting. We really need to start just saying the ABCs of Medicare, because they love, again, I should just double rant for the day, why Medicare has so many letters in so many different ways. I mean, there's A and B and C and D, and then you can get into G and F and N and K and on and on and on. So anyway, double rant for the day, just double rant. But but Part B, had the opportunity recently to be discussing with somebody, an individual who had turned 65. Now, most people are aware, and not everyone, because Medicare is still a little bit confusing, and we've discussed it a bit, of Part A is typically free for people based upon a time worked by either you or spouse, right? And maybe, there may be some cost to that. But Part B, there's always cost, and we've discussed that as well, of the cost of Part B. The one we're most familiar with this year, at least, is $148.50. It'll go up again next year, so be prepared to have that conversation shortly. But and potentially, maybe it won't, but it probably is going to go up again. So Part B, what happens? So I have the ability to have insurance for my employer. That's a whole different topic we'll discuss another day. But let's say that I am getting on Medicare as Part A, and I look at Part B, and it says I got this $148 bill per month, and I can click a button that says I decline to do that. There's a consequence to doing that. Are you aware of that consequence?
That does not surprise me at all.
Yeah, so every year you don't have Part A that you were eligible, or sorry, Part B. Every year you have Part B and you did not take Part B and you are eligible for it, there is a 10% charge, an increase on your premium.
Ooh.
Monthly, right? So if it's just 1 year, that's a $14.80 increase, right?
Yeah,
And so
that's exponential.
Yeah. So that happens. And in this particular situation, I've had many years of doing this, and I've had people have several reasons, and they are often good reasons that make sense to someone depending upon your political views and your views as what do I do morally with it. So case in point, a gentleman called me and said, I refuse to take part B because of that 10% annual cost. I refuse to take part B because they're going to penalize me.
Okay. We got a question. So wait a minute. So I refuse to take part B because they're going to penalize me if I don't take part B. So my mother has this phrase that cutting off your nose despite your face. That's what that feels like to me. Fair statement?
Fair statement. Yeah, fair statement. I know that we as a society right now are having huge debates, and I don't want to lean one way or the other, but there are those that are wanting a type of socialized medicine, and there are those that do not want a type of socialized medicine. And referring back to the ACA, that was a big push with it, is this is going to be Medicare for all or socialized medicine.
Right.
And so there's been lots of debates on that topic. But most people really are probably not aware until they get to 65 that Medicare is
socialized.
Right. It is your option if you qualify for it. Again, there are those that do not qualify for it based upon work history, right? And they have a different set of rules, and we won't even go down that rabbit hole today. But for those that qualified for B, you have to take B when you're supposed to. And
so let me interrupt. So when they're supposed to, so you're meaning when they get the chance to initially enroll at 65, you need to take it regardless of other coverage, correct?
Unless you're still employed, you can postpone Part B. So like my mother-in-law was working for an airline company, and she worked until she was 67. And so she got her Part A, but didn't take her Part B. No penalty for that. No penalty for that, right? Because you're having what they call credible coverage.
Got it.
For your employer. So no penalty for that whatsoever. But for those that didn't have that, they did not have any kind of work insurance available to them, and they just opt just not to do Part B.
Okay. So your point today, unless you have credible coverage elsewhere, you need to get Part B, or you're going to pay more money for it. Which if you postpone getting Part B, and that 10% might be $14 the first year, but the second year it's going to be more like 15, and then it's going to be 16, and then it's going to be 18. And so it's going to start to really, really add up.
Right. So it's actually more like I mean, if we're just rounding quickly, it's 15, 30, 45, 60.
Yeah. But right. I wasn't meaning the cumulative total. I was meaning every year that's how much it doesn't go by 14 every year. That amount increases, but you're right. Within a short period of time, that 148 is going to be $300. And when you walk into a fixed income after you've retired, that's not going to work. So your best solution, if you don't have credible coverage, is to make sure that you are grabbing Part B when you turn 65.
Yeah, and again, this is that it goes back to that moral debate that you may have. I've got people who feel like the medicine we practice in the West is not, they don't want prescriptions, they don't want a doctor, they want to do other things that they feel are more effective in their life. We have had a terrible thing happen in the last little while called COVID.
Don't say that. YouTube will downregulate us.
Well, it's a terrible thing for those that have lost family.
Family, for sure.
It's a terrible thing for those that have spent time in the hospital. It's a terrible thing for those that have long-lasting effects from it. And again, we don't need to go down the philosophical side of COVID. We can just stay right to what we do know, and that is those things I've just mentioned. And I wish that you could say, I'm going to do the type of treatment I want to the rest of my life. Unfortunately, we just don't have that much control. I mean, there's those that go, yes, I do. And unless you're living in the wilderness of Alaska, if you fall over in a grocery store,
Yeah.
you may have the desire to say, I'm not going to have anybody resuscitate me. But depending on where you just don't have control in all situations. So what happens if it's at the grocery store and you pass out? They're going to call
Yeah.
an ambulance. They're going to, they're going to put you in a hospital. And so there's too many times that we don't necessarily have the ability to be in complete control of our destiny, for lack of a better word, right?
No, for sure. If anything, the last 18 months, I would say, has proven that without question.
Yeah. And I've had the opportunity in my life personally to have people go to the emergency room, and that it's when you're having to make that decision where someone's kind of lucid, and they're like, hey, do you want us to take them? Do you not want us to take them? Do you want to drive them? I guess it'd be kind of scary, and so
Yeah.
So part B, I totally understand why people are like, I don't want to take socialized medicine. I don't want to deal with this penalty. I think it's all unfair and it's unjust, and I am going to just walk away from the entire socialized system the United States is trying to push upon me right now with Medicare. I understand. There was a time, there are those that don't like certain organizations, and one of those organizations that certain people, depending upon their political views, as I've gone around the United States, it's been interesting. I've been in towns where there are as many red people as there are blue people. I love that. I can say red and blue, right? Those are colors I can say, right? So, with very, very different points of view. And you go into one house and they're like, I have this point of view. And you go into another house and I have this point of view. And again, I'm not there to discuss your political points of view. I'm there to help you understand insurance.
Mm-hmm. And not just the insurance, but there's a cost benefit that has to be done, and an analysis that has to be done. You can't always apply morality to certain situations. And I do agree with you. And in this case, wherever you fall politically, and people do have really strong feelings about this. You would think that the majority of people would be like, oh, I just move on to Medicare, or, oh, I just move into the private system. That's not the case. People have a lot of feelings about this stuff. And sometimes the responsible thing, in my opinion, at least, is to kind of put some of those feelings aside, do the cost benefit analysis, because the system does exist as it is. And so you can either play the game and try to win for yourself, or you can get played by the game. And that's really where you're at, I feel like, in this situation.
Absolutely. Fair statement. Yeah, fair statement. And so again, we understand why you have those opinions.
Sure.
But I think that you need to make sure you're not leaving others with a debt or with a responsibility, or you're losing things based upon that.
Right.
There are those that may say, well, I'll just have the state Medicaid program take care of the cost if it's too great for me to handle, or I may declare bankruptcy, or I may, the hospital will work it out with me. But that does happen.
But there's moral cost to those as well. And I think that those things, sometimes we feel like we're bulletproof, and those things don't apply to us, but they do. And you pass on things you wouldn't necessarily have to pass on. So I do think there's a lot of wisdom in playing the game as the rules are written, even if you disagree at this point.
So as one gentleman said once, you know, you got to kind of think of yourself as a bunch of people that have crashed on an island in an airplane, and there are those who are on the mountaintop. Maybe an island's better because you can't get off the island. You've crashed and there's no food, and there's those that have died. And unfortunately, morally, you may not want to eat your best friend, but the survival has to happen. And so don't do something morally with part B that may affect your survival financially in the long run.
I love it. I love it. I feel like the title of this video should be Medicare and Cannibalism.
Very well, maybe. As I always tell everybody in my life, though, Jess, it's all good.
It's true. It's true.
So with that, have a wonderful day.
I love it. Thank you. Please find us on Facebook at Medicare Mapped. Come and join us. There's lots of conversations happening there, and we would love to see you. Thank you.